All right, here we are at the Crystal Clear Point Studios with Matthew Pierce and Lou Ann Morris and Deborah Colleen Rose. And hopefully that's the last time you will ever see that video, the introduction, because our genius, our IT computer graphic genius is working on a new video. And I'm excited to see what it is because he had to do all kinds of weird, silly things for him to put in this video. So I'm excited about it. Luann, are you lost, sweetheart? If you can see how you look right now, she's like, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing here?
Yeah.
I'll
So
have what
we're
she's drinking.
talking. Yeah, we're talking again. Watch out. And what are you drinking, Matthew?
Actually, I'm just drinking some Diet Pepsi.
I'm drinking my protein shake because I'm healthy. 30 grams of protein, right, in one little box. Okay, so Zoom thinks I'm waving now because I held my hand up. What the heck? All right, so we decided today to talk about boundaries because this is a huge pet peeve for me personally. What about you and Matthew? Luann, what do y'all think about boundaries?
Well, I'm new to boundaries.
Yes,
So
you are.
I'm still working on, I think it's a good thing when you think, okay, so I'm not going to endure that. But the problem with me is how do you respond when it happens? I sometimes have difficulty responding in a proper manner to
Or
my
responding at
boundaries.
all. Responding at
Yeah.
all.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I just am like, did that happen? What happened? And probably, see, I should say that so the other person knows that something's not right.
Right.
What about you, Matthew? What do you think about boundaries?
I mean, I think I'm pretty good at like expressing safe boundaries. I've had to do it all my life with growing up. Is like, yeah, that's okay with me, but this is not okay with me. But sometimes the definition of those boundaries is what gets kind of tricky. We were kind of joking before the podcast started here that, okay, was that like a soft boundary, or was that a hard boundary, or what kind of wiggle room do I have with that? And so, to me, it's like really defining those boundaries as like, yeah, no, that doesn't work for me. So, I mean, I sometimes have trouble with that.
So is that
Well,
a proper response then to boundaries? That doesn't work for me.
I've used that many a times, where people are that I have felt are pushing my boundary, and I'm like, well, that's not acceptable. Okay. And to me, that kind of goes into into the point of saying, okay, if that's not like the boundary that you understand, then I'm going to have to reset the expectation here, because
yeah.
obviously someone's not communicating, what needs to happen.
So I think that you're on the edge of the cliff of where we need to go and jump off in this conversation, because what I'm seeing, especially in social media, is that people go, well, you're violating my boundary. And the expectation is that that person is supposed to immediately come to a halt, jerk to a stop, and adjust everything they're doing to accommodate the person who says that's against my boundary. And so I was doing a little research. Oh my God, I actually researched for this podcast today.
Miracles
And
happen.
yeah, they do happen, not often. And what I found interesting is that it really kind of defined what bugs me about boundaries. My boundaries are about me, my expectations, and how I'm going to manage my behavior, and what circumstances I will tolerate and be in, and what circumstances I will put myself in, and what circumstances I will remove myself from. Boundaries are not about you setting limitations or expectations on the other person and then being able to get mad and angry if they don't live up to those expectations or limitations. And that's what I see so often. People go, oh, no, 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 oh, no, that's against my boundaries. You better adjust immediately. No, I don't have to adjust. So now you have the decision to make of either saying, I'm going to adjust the way I'm dealing with you, I'm going to remove myself from the circumstance, or we need to have more of a conversation. Can we sit down and talk about this? You know? And I'm like, that's exactly what bugs me about this boundary conversation and why we're talking about it. That's the nail on the head.
Yeah,
Do
because
you have any specific example of like maybe like when a boundary like that happened to you? I mean, you mentioned social media. Has this happened to you on social media?
Well, no, because most people are afraid of me. Or they don't know how to approach me. That's the first thing. Number two, I don't have a lot of boundaries. I really don't, because I'm able to let a lot of things just go to the side, because I know that 99.999% of what goes on in this world is about them, not me.
Hmm.
So I don't take a lot of things personally. The only thing that I will stand firm on is if they're asking me to do something that violates my ethics or morals, or if I feel like I'm constantly being personally attacked and I just finally get fed up on it, and I just don't want to listen to it anymore. But and there's also this really fine seesaw thing that you have to kind of maneuver. There's a difference in having preferences and boundaries. My preference, okay, is to get everything out in the open immediately. Let's get this out, talk about it, put it aside, because frankly, I just want to live my life and have fun, and I don't want this hanging over my head. Now, in my marriage, my husband would love to walk away and never speak of it again. You know? And he cannot think about it. Whereas I'm going to chew on it like a dog with a bone, and I'm going to suck that marrow out. So we have come to a compromise of, if I really feel the need to talk about it, he has decided that he will give me a time and place to talk about it, and it has to be within a certain time frame, or he knows I will go batshit crazy. Okay, those are preferences, but we've set boundaries with those preferences to accommodate each other. So we have preferences and boundaries in that scenario. Does that make sense?
mm,
Makes sense. But I kind of hear an overlap with the word preference and boundary, because I mean, I have preferences of the things that I will not talk about or that I won't publicly express. I mean, and that's my preference, but it also kind of goes to the point of that's a boundary for me. So, how do we really like pinpoint focus a boundary and not just like, that's my preference.
All right. So in this article that I printed up, I'm reading a little paragraph here, and it says setting boundaries is something you do for yourself and share with others. You can choose not to date people who behave in X or Y way, but you can't make someone behave in a certain way.
Right.
So my preference is that you be someone who doesn't cuss. My boundary might be, that's a hard preference and I'm just not going to do that. Or if it's just a preference, I may say, oh, that's a lovely person, I don't like that they cuss, but I'm going to choose to ignore that because there's too many other things I like in the relationship. So one's a boundary, one's a preference. So that would be the comparison. So it's a real fine line, but I can see why people get confused. My objection is when people use boundaries to beat people up with.
Yeah.
That's what makes me really hot under the collar. So, and of course, there's all kinds of boundaries. There's personal boundaries, there's work boundaries. Sometimes your boundary is based upon who you are internally. Sometimes it's based upon physical limitations. Like, you're not going to get me on top of the mountain to go bungee jumping. Nope, 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 nope. Not happening. That is an emotional boundary and a physical boundary. And I don't feel the need to prove to you that I can overcome my fear. Don't want to.
yeah.
Don't need to. So
I have a height problem. I mean,
you're short.
fear. I have a height fear, but I had to learn to get on a 6-foot ladder. I mean, I couldn't get over knee high up off the ground. But when the kids were little and I had a house, I was the one who had to be there to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I installed ceiling fans and things like that, I had to get over the fear of getting up on a ladder. So now I can pretty much go 10, 12 feet and it doesn't bother me. But if I had to overlook a cliff to go bungee jumping,
So you found a need to expand on your boundary, which was really an emotional boundary
out of necessity.
out of
let's see.
necessity. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a valid point. Um, Something that I've seen a lot in threads on Facebook and stuff is somebody will say something and somebody will respond directly to that comment. And the person will go, "Oh, I don't like that. You're crossing my boundaries now." Well, no, that's not a boundary. You just don't like it because I didn't agree with you, you know? And that is one of the other articles that I pulled up saying that a lot of times people will try to use boundaries or the illusion of boundaries as a way of manipulating the conversation or the relationship to make people do what they want. So like you might say something, Matthew, like you said, well, I like donuts with my coffee. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I want to tell you about this donut I had." And you're like, "No, I don't want to talk about that right now." Well, you brought it up, so why can't I talk about it? Well, because I don't want to. You're crossing my boundary because, I'm not ready to talk about that. Okay. Did I cross
Yeah,
a
but for me,
boundary?
that didn't seem like an established boundary.
Exactly.
It's and for me to say, I love donuts, and for you to say, no, that's not, you're gonna, if we want to talk about it, no, I don't, then just say, I don't want to talk about it. Not like,
Exactly.
oh, that's against my boundary. So do you mean like, are we never supposed to talk about donuts? Or is it just
Right.
this one occasion where you have a flight of fancy that it's like, no, I really don't want to talk about donuts.
Exactly. Exactly. And I see people beat other people up constantly going, "Oh no, we're not doing that. That's a boundary for me." Oh, well, where was that
Then,
written? Where's your boundary Bible? I need to see your boundary list, you
so
know?
if that doesn't work, you probably ought to not respond to my texts, to my posts.
Get off my
You probably should
thread.
put that little X button up there. Yeah, that's what aggravates me about people starting in on other people. I said, well, I posted it because that's my opinion. If you don't like my opinion, just say so. Or if you want to argue about it, why don't you just not post anything? Because I don't want to argue about it.
Well,
Well,
go
but
ahead,
I
Matthew.
think we have to also realize where the conversation takes place, because if it's in a public forum or on, in public on Facebook or TikTok or, Instagram or wherever else like that, the whole reason that you're putting yourself out there, okay, is to be noticed and to have like your opinion known.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want someone to come onto your feed and be like, well, I don't agree with you, okay, don't
I have an
post.
example. I posted an article about vaccinations in the North West, and they were saying how kids were now saying, I want the vaccinations when the parents didn't want them to have it. And the whole dynamic that happened. And I posted that because I was going through kind of the same thing with my cousin who said, oh no, I'm not vaccinating my kids against anything. And I'm like, okay. But then her sister got in my feed and said, you need to take that down right now. This is not correct information, and blah, 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 blah. And I thought, I'm ignoring that. And my other friend from the other coast got it and says, you need to leave her alone. That's her opinion. And you don't know that it's not right. And she just, she attacked her.
Well, I'm
And
going to tell you right now, if I had really hardcore boundaries, and maybe I need to have a few more, I would be offended every day because I get on Facebook and I post all kinds of stuff. And rarely is it about what I think personally. I'm just sharing information or I'm making sarcastic, snarky remarks or I'm putting up funnies. But it's amazing to me how many people will come and post a thread on my Facebook about politics, sex, whatever, like the vaccine. But no one ever asks me what I think. They don't ask me what I think.
I think it's because if you post it on your timeline, they think that's the way you feel or the thing.
Well, then they're idiots because I don't. I'm stimulating thought and conversation. And I tell people that if they do ever ask me why I posted that. If they, and that's the question that I get asked the most if I do. Why did you post it? Because I'm stimulating thought and conversation. But again, they're still not asking me what I think. So I don't tell them. If you want to know what I think, ask me. Otherwise, I'm not going to tell you because I figured you're not interested. So I'm not going to bore you and waste my time doing something that's worthless. You know?
Well, that's what's, I got one of those notes from the gods, the Facebook gods that said,
Oh my God, I'm in
"Oh,
Facebook jail right now.
you're in violation of blah, blah, blah." And I thought,
Yeah.
what? It was on my Luann Morris Psychic Intuitive. And so I went and looked at the feed and I thought, I don't know what they're talking about.
It's because they deleted it. And that's what gets me about Facebook. You answer to God, but Facebook rules our life. Because I've had 2 of those in the past 2 weeks going, you have violated our community standards and we have deleted your post. Well, I have no idea what they've deleted because they don't tell you. So I don't know what I'm doing to violate. But what's interesting to me is most of these are things that I have shared from other people.
Be careful with that, with this, because there's a scam that is going on Facebook that they'll tell you that. Okay.
Oh, really?
They will tell you, hey, you're violating XYZ, so on and so forth. Okay. Real Facebook, okay, it will say it was taken down. Okay. But if you I mean, if you they'll want to get all kinds of information from you. So, you know, just let it. But if your account is taken down, that's when you have the issue. Like no one is able to see anything. That's the issue. Okay.
Well, I think I am in jail of some sort because I normally get average 50 likes on most of my posts.
Right.
And for the past 2 weeks, I've been doing good to get 3, you know.
The algorithm on Facebook always changes. I mean, it does. I mean, that's the kind of how things operate and how it work. It has everything to do with, you know, the hashtags. It has everything to do with the subject matter. It has everything to do with your face being on the screen. You know, it's all of those things are taken into account. But I mean, that's another whole episode that we could do.
Well,
Go ahead, Luann.
I did click on that thing you were talking about, and they started wanting my telephone number and this and that.
That's a
and I thought,
scam. Yeah, that was a scam. Mine was real because you couldn't see anything. It didn't ask me anything. It's like they don't want to hear your defense. We don't care. You're gone. Boom. You know. So, but so I continued with my research. I'm telling you, I did a good job today. I'm proud of myself.
Good work. Good work.
And it says that most people become confrontational, either assertively confrontational or passively confrontational when they use the concept that boundaries are being crossed. And this article had 5 comments about other things to do if you felt like boundaries are being crossed. And the first one was do no thing. You don't have to react to everything. And I thought, well, that's friggin' brilliant. And that's what I do a lot. I on analysis of how I handle it, because it's not that things don't bother me. I just choose not to react to them because I don't see anything to be gained by it. You know, I know that this person's not going to, unless it's like something like, you know, if you're in the habit of calling me dog and I don't want to hear dog, I can just say, don't call me that, you know. And, you know, things like that I'll respond to. But, you know, a lot of things that's just who they are. And I either accept them and that's just part of the relationship or not, you know. So they said, do no thing. And I thought, that's brilliant. You don't have to respond to everything, you know.
and that's usually the way I do it. I just,
Yeah, but it bugs you. The point is do no thing and not let it ruin your life.
No.
That's the difference.
I'm learning not to let it bug me.
I even go to the extreme sometimes, and I guess you might call this passive aggressive, but I just find it entertaining, is that when I see that people have like certain tics or habits or something, I just start counting to see how many times they do it in a day. You know? And just kind of enjoy it and appreciate that, and like, oh yeah, that really is part of their personality, you know. Just Like, how many times do they blink when they're angry, or how many times do they say a certain phrase, or how many times do they do this with their hand when they're talking, and things like that. And that may annoy me and it may be distracting to me, but I can't ask them to change that. That's a part of who they are. So to kind of change my energy, I'll just spend time focused on that and counting it. And then eventually I find that it just doesn't bother me anymore. I've turned it into something fun. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
It's kind of weird, I guess, now that I said it that way.
No, but I mean, when you're focusing more on the energy behind the exchange than the actual words being said, that might be, oh, you're crossing my boundary. I mean, we associate meaning with our words. Okay. Like to me, for example, I mean, I don't have a boundary about my name, so to speak. Okay. People can call me Matt or Matthew. Okay. My preference is that I be called Matthew because that's what my mother named me.
Mhm.
And so, but am I going to be offended if you all of a sudden start calling me Matt? I don't know what's behind it. I mean, maybe you have a hard time saying Matthew, or maybe you have a friend who is named Matthew and you don't want to confuse their personality with mine, you know? And so it's like we have these boundaries and we have preferences, and it's like, should I all of a sudden say, hey, listen, I always want to be called Matthew, so hey, you're crossing my boundary if you call me Matt?
Yeah, and what are you losing if you do that? You're possibly losing a great relationship based
Yeah.
upon a one-word issue. I'm always amazed and irritated both when I encounter people in enlightened communities or tribes or groups that say that they're all about enlightenment, they're all about healing, they're all about light work, they're all about Christian movement, they're all about Buddha peace, namaste stuff. And yet they will focus on the words in front of them and not look at the intent. How can they fail to do that? How can they fail to look for the intent before they decide to act or react? I find that fascinating.
Because most of the time when you react to something like that, you react badly.
Oh, yeah. And that's why that do no thing is so, I think, powerful. It doesn't mean that you don't ever do anything, but if you decide, I'm not going to react in this moment and think about it, then you can come to and the example they use is really extreme, but I thought it was really cool. The person that's writing this article said that they were actually in New York during 9/11, and they were not in the Twin Towers, but they were in a building close to that area. And they said that they decided to stay in the building because they didn't know what to do. And it was obvious from what they saw that the streets were dangerous. And they had no idea of knowing exactly what had happened or what was happening. So they decided to stay in the building based upon the information they had. So they did nothing. And it turned out to be a good decision. Now, this could have been really a bad article if that had not been a positive outcome. But the point is that they made a decision and they decided to do nothing based on the fact they didn't have enough information. So how do we get more information about people's intents? You ask. If I'm always calling Matthew Matt, he could finally say, Deborah, we've talked about this. Why do you call me Matt? And I would go, well, I'll be honest with you. My very first crush in elementary school was this little beautiful boy that looked like a Greek god, and his name was Matt. And I guess I just go there. And I will make more of a conscious effort to say Matthew and not Matt. But I just want you to know it's a fond memory for me, and it really makes me feel good. That would be a great conversation in my mind. It might not change anything for Matthew. Hopefully it would, but at least he could offer me some grace if he chose. Going, well, she's in a happy place when she calls me Matt, so I'm going to allow it,
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I guess I'm in a place in my life that, I can kind of be okay with people's upset or be okay with wherever they are. So I don't put a judgment or attachment on someone calling me Matt. It's like, oh, they're being disrespectful. I mean, one of the reasons why I don't use Dr. Matthew Pierce is because it has a connotation of I'm better than you. I mean, and you want to talk about a boundary there? It's like I'm struggling with it. I have one side of the court that's saying you need to start using Dr. Matthew Pierce, and the other side of the court is like, no, don't do that because you're going to lose a lot of people, if you kind of put that authority out there. And I'm just like,
And see, I want to call you doctor. I think it's awesome. And I want to honor the work that you've done and the effort that you have put into this. And I want to remind you what a healer you are. So I would love to call you doctor.
Thank you.
You know, but I would call you Dr. M, you know, because that would make it more personal for me personally, and also let people know, oh, that's my friend. I get to call him Dr. M.
So when Chuck got his PhD in it was psychology something. Anyway, he didn't want to use it.
Who?
Y'all said, you went to school, you worked hard, you are an expert on the subject, you've been doing it, and now you get to claim it.
Yeah.
And so we call him Dr. Chuck.
Yeah. I would be honored and thrilled to call you doctor. And I just, I'd be honored and thrilled to call myself doctor.
I think the key is that you don't use it to feel superior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other people, as long as you're just Matthew, regardless of what they call you, the school gave me the pen doctor because I have worked really hard to get this far, but I'm still Matthew.
Yeah.
So it's your presentation, I think.
I mean, this has been one of the things that I've been, that I've actually really been struggling with, because I also have that, imposter syndrome. Yeah, I did all the study, I did all this, everything like that, but who am I? Who am I? And I guess I've set a personal boundary, okay, to not want to seem that I'm being arrogant, or that I want to like elevate myself above you. And so that's the reason why I don't like using the doctor, because it's like, I guess I want to be respectful of you and how you view things.
So let's see what you think about this. On this article, there's 5 points about how to approach boundary issues other than being assertively aggressive or whatever. Point number 2 might resonate with you. We'll see. Selfish may be too selfish. And what they say here is when our only concern is the skin on our backs, we neglect to see the vast picture, including those around us and the earth. In fact, we only see a very minute part of the picture, our own selves. So like if you're going, oh, that's my boundary and blah, 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 and you're not looking how it affects the big picture or the other person, they're saying that's being too selfish possibly. So when we respond to a situation as a whole, we're not sacrificing ourselves. In fact, we're becoming our authentic self and surrendering to the whole of the circumstances, which is closer to the truth. So this is kind of your situation in reverse. By claiming doctor, you're not putting yourself over us or lording over us. You're saying, as part of the big picture, I'm so committed to you and to the health of the world and the people around me. I put in this work, this effort, this study, all of this hard work so I could be better at what I do, so I could help you when you want my help.
And so now, what is your doctor?
Go ahead, Lou. Go ahead.
What is your doctor in?
Metaphysical science.
Okay. So that's where you have your expertise.
Yeah.
And people know that.
Is metaphysical science, life coaching, and spiritual coaching. So, I mean, but then again, it goes to my head. I'm like, well, I'm not a psychologist. I can't say that I'm a psychologist, but my training is in helping people realize that they can have the life that they love. So.
Well, so what you could consider, NLP here, We're doing some little reframing. What you can consider is that doctor title hanging out for people to see is actually a light beacon drawing people to you that need help in the spiritual and metaphysical community. And they know that you're the expert that might be able to help them to find the answers that they're needing instead of going to some of these hoodoo, voodoo, woodoo people and getting screwed up. So, did I say that? Hoodoo, voodoo,
Yeah, you
voodoo?
said it.
Yes, you did.
But that's
and
spot on. That really is. It's spot on. And, I thank you for bringing that, to my attention, because I've never framed it that way. And so, that gives me more access and more, more ways to convey that. So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention.
And, it's there maybe in your advertisement and maybe you never bring it up again,
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to walk around with that tattooed on your forehead either. So there's a balance. There's a definite balance there with your comfort zone. But the whole thing about boundaries is not about keeping you in your comfort zone. It's about keeping you in the big picture of how you fit in. And I found that so provocative in the thought process. Boundaries are not about keeping us in a comfort zone. They're about helping us to manipulate ourselves when we're uncomfortable. I'm like, oh my God, that's a huge reframe.
Well, then let me ask you this question, because we're talking about boundaries. We're talking about, when is it okay to push a boundary?
I always push boundaries. I have to be blunt because my whole life theory or belief system is that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. So in my coaching process, in my private investigations, I'm always pushing people to move in their uncomfort zone so we can break that up and move them forward into a new uncomfort zone and move into a new uncomfort zone. And because I believe that people live in comfortable discomfort, they finally find that uncomfortable position that they have enough tools to manage or whatever, and they stay in that comfortable discomfort and they proceed to die and live there for 50 years. That's what I believe. So I don't think
I love pushing boundaries too. But I don't know if I actually do it from like a standpoint of like trying to be assertive and make myself more powerful. I don't think that's the case. I think it's more so is like you have to realize that maybe sometimes the way that you are perceiving things and looking at things isn't the way it is.
That's true for everybody.
Yeah. But I'll bring up like one example. I moderate a lot of Facebook groups and things like that, and one of the groups that I moderate is for those people that want to learn about paganism and witchcraft and things of that nature. But you have a lot of these people that are coming on, the people that are seeking, okay, that think that they can go to Barnes and Noble and pick up a book of 101 spells, and all of a sudden that makes them like an expert witch.
Right.
And I go, yeah, sweetie, no, that doesn't
And
work.
I think that's when you use your moniker.
That's when you go, I'm the doctor, you better listen to me.
I'm a doctor of metaphysical. I'm a doctor of metaphysical science, and I've been studying this X number of years, and I feel I'm qualified to answer this question for you and to try to. So maybe not when you're just introducing yourself to somebody, just at a party or you could use it here. To me, this is an official platform for you.
Yeah. Okay. I usually use in my experience as a, and it doesn't necessarily mean doctor, as a person who's been studying, the occult and this sort of thing for, 20 some odd years, I think I have a little bit to say here,
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is I have spent most of my life thinking there was something wrong with me because I don't care what people think for the most part. I do care about some people, my loved ones and my friends, but even then it's limited. But I do look at the big picture and I look at how what I want to do and how I'm doing it affects the family or affects the business or the group or whatever. And what I finally realized a couple of months ago is that where I'm at with this not caring what people think is what most people are striving to reach. And I've been there for years and thinking there was something wrong with me. Now, it doesn't mean I don't care about people. I just don't let their attitudes about me affect me in my decision making, because I am a big picture person. I am the whole picture person, and I'm also very comfortable in telling people I'm right most of the time. And I'm also telling people I have the right to be wrong. And I'm comfortable with that too. I'm not God. I'm not, perfect. But if you ask me what I think, I'll tell you. And I will support my thought. And I think that's what sets a lot of people apart. Everybody has an opinion, but I personally respect the opinion more when someone can support that opinion with either personal experience or research or facts or scientific studies to other than that, well, that's just what I grew up knowing, or that's just the way I've always done it, or that's just what I think. Well, I really don't care what you think. I want to know why you think that.
Mm.
If you want me to care what you think, I need to know why you think that.
And
Does
I
that
think it's important that we say, I have experience with this, et cetera, et cetera.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is that the next 2 points are that clarity can be gentle and humility goes a long way. And I know that most people don't think I'm very humble, because I'm very confident. And I disagree with that. I think I am humble. It's just I don't care, about certain things. I care about you, but I may not care what you think. There's a difference. I can't, because I can't manipulate. Someone told Luann the other day I'm a controlling person. And so I just went to Facebook with that. And I said, you know what? If I'm as a controlling a person as people accuse me of, you wouldn't get to say that about me. I would control that. I would stop you from saying that. So it's amazing to me how people resent confidence. And I
But do
think
you think a lot of
boundaries.
this I mean, you're hitting on the control factor, because I can see, from the examples that we've raised already, that it's a control thing. A lot of people
Mhm.
are like, okay, well, okay, we're not going to talk about donuts. Well, why?
Why
To
are
me,
you the rule
that's,
master?
yeah. Why? To me, that's like, okay, well, then you just want to control the conversation, you know, and right at that moment, it's like there's something else more important for you to want you that you want to hear. Okay. I don't want to hear about donuts. Okay. Well, then what do you want to hear? You know?
So the clarity part of this, we hit on it already a little bit. And it's basically like, did you know you sounded angry when you said that? Did you realize that you didn't take my feelings into consideration? Was that your intent? And Luann did a beautiful job of that in a conversation several weeks ago. And the person says, yeah, I intended that completely. Okay. That really defined the situation. It did.
Thank you. I said, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. So there was no doubt in Luann's mind that this person intended to hurt her feelings and didn't care about her feelings and was okay with that. All right. Well, now we know where to go with
Okay.
that. We're not going to ruminate on it. And then the humility is about realizing that people act the way they do because of who they are, not because they're responding to us. It's not all about us. And I guess that's where my confidence comes from. If you're being a jackass to me, unless you're beating the shit out of me, beating my brains into the concrete, it really doesn't affect me. And, used to when we were kids, they said sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never harm you. And now we've gone the complete opposite. And now they're even saying that it's harder to recover from words than it is from physical abuse. I think that there's got to be a medium somewhere in the middle where we meet. Yeah, I don't want you to tell me I'm an ugly bitch, but if you do, okay. I don't have to let it bug me. I might say, gee, that wasn't very nice of them, and I don't want to be around that person if they're going to talk to me. But I don't have to take it to heart and go get plastic surgery because now I feel ugly, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
So
because you just come to oh, well, I guess this friendship is not as important as I thought.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I thought we had this, and this, and obviously we do not.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought we had monogamy in one of my marriages and we didn't. That was a deal breaker. That was a boundary. That was a boundary. You promised monogamy, you didn't give it to me, we're done. Boom. You know? So I lost my train of thought, damn it. Say something, y'all. I lost my train of thought.
Well, that happens as we get involved in things that we want to make sure that it is crystal clear the way we feel.
Well, I think it's pretty clear how I feel.
So, but sometimes people take it differently. They take it as being controlling when you're trying to make your opinion understood.
Mhm.
This is where I stand. And I think just at this moment, clarity has come to me in that that's why people think you're controlling.
Oh, well,
Because
thank you.
you say what you mean. You
I
mean
do.
what you say,
I do.
and well, you can't control me that way. Well, that's okay. It's like my situation. When it happens, you just go, okay, so what am I going to do about it?
Yeah. Do I want
This
to try
person
to
has,
have a relationship or am I going to
yeah,
walk away from this?
yeah. I mean, when somebody makes it quite clear that your relationship was not what you thought, and it's not willing to give an inch, then it's your decision. What do you do?
And that's not the same thing as telling somebody, well, if you love me, you'll do so
Exactly.
and so. That's
No.
blackmail. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
that's downright manipulation.
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And I see that a lot in clients and people I know and stuff like that. And, so no, I'm not going there. Never mind. Cancel, cancel. I'm not going there with that story.
Cancel, rewind.
Yeah, yeah. So the last point in this article is that I'm sorry is a perfectly perfect last resort. So you say X, I say Y, you go, you're crossing my boundary. I go, I'm sorry. I mean, we don't have to have a big discussion. We can just own it. That's your boundary. I don't know what to do with that. I'm sorry. Let's go on to the next subject.
My intention was not to do whatever it is you think I did. That was not my intention.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times I've told people, if you really think that I'm intending to hurt you, you need to end this relationship with me now.
Mm.
I do. I mean, if you think that I don't have your best interest at heart, if you don't think I'm a good friend, if you don't think that I care about you, please tell me now, and I will be more than happy to show you that I love you enough to walk away so that you don't feel unsafe anymore.
Well,
I've had those relationships, where I've had to say, I'm sorry, what's transpiring, what's going on between us. I have to walk away. I have to walk away.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I like to think that I am emotionally intelligent enough that if that person really believes that about me, I'm going to leave the premises or the relationship or whatever so that they don't have to deal with that anymore. Because if nothing else, if you really care about that person, you want them to feel safe. You want them
mhm.
to feel cared about and nurtured and cherished. And if they're not getting that from me, and I don't think I can adjust my behavior to give them what they want the way they want it, then I'm going to walk away. Or if I choose, I just don't want to change my behavior. They're asking me to do something that it just feels so unnatural to me that
Well,
I'm not to do that.
and you know that you didn't do it intentionally, and that there would be no scenario where you would intentionally want to do it again, but that doesn't mean it won't happen.
Mhm.
That means you have to talk about it if it happens.
Well,
Instead
we're
of just
human.
like,
We're always going to be at a different place in our life under different circumstances. I mean, I might have a day that I've been disrespected all day long, and someone calls me Matt, and I snap back, and I'm like, well, actually, my name's Matthew.
Hmm.
You know, it just might happen. We're human, and we have to be flexible enough to be, and I think, Deborah, when you said emotionally mature enough to know that we're always going to be in a different place in our life. And yeah, boundaries sometimes they do get crossed. Okay. And yeah, saying
Screw
sorry.
up.
Yeah.
We
I'm
screw up.
sorry. I crossed that boundary for you. I apologize.
Well, I have to watch my tone constantly. And it's, as I get older, I'm even more aware. I just sound very matter of fact to me. And other people will tell me I sound hateful sometimes because I'm so matter of fact, or I sound angry, or I sound disappointed. No, I don't feel any of those things. I'm just stating fact, and I'm wanting to move the conversation forward to get to a place where I can go, yay, so I can be happy. I'm not happy, but I'm not in a bad place either. I just want to get into a happier place. And my tone of voice has always got me in trouble. So you would think after years, I would be better at it, but I'm still working on it. So I have to tell my friends and family, you have to give me grace. And I do that with my husband all the time. He goes, Wayne, you just sound so damn bitchy right now. I'm like, you've got to give me some grace here. I'm tired. This is who I am. This is how I talk. I'm trying, but this does not come naturally for me. Like I had to learn how to hug. I'm not a natural hugger. Touching people is hard for me. The only way that I could relate physically in any capacity was sex. Sex was okay for me. Hugging was not. Why? I don't know. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. But I wanted to change that. So I figured out how to anchor in a new idea for that. So we don't even always have to go through all this horrible self-analysis of why. We just have to figure out what we can do to make ourselves comfortable to do it.
It's funny that you said kissing and and for that sparks something in me. One of my boundaries, and I know me dating always comes up in our conversations. I apologize, but
I
one of
love
the
hearing
boundaries
about your
to me,
dates.
well,
Living
I
to you
mean, this is what
vicariously. I'm an old married woman.
well, I mean, this doesn't have to do with any date here previously or lately, but if I believe that if a man can't kiss or to show that type of intimacy, it's not worth my time. Like
Oh,
if you can't give me that, that, I don't know. It's just, to me, that's like next.
and see, I love to teach them how to kiss because I've never met a man that was a natural kisser, in my opinion.
No.
So I've
I have the
always,
same thing.
yeah.
I saw someone that I don't kiss. What? How can you be intimate with somebody without kissing? Well,
Kissing.
there's
Yeah.
always sex. And I went,
Oh, well,
not
give him my
always.
number when I get divorced or Scott dies. He'll be a good match for me.
Mine was always, well, that's you. That's not me. To me, kissing is is intimate.
Well, I have found that you can teach them if you take the time, and most men will learn if you teach them the right way. And we will go into that. We won't go into that, but
Like another episode. That's another episode.
oh, that's a whole series.
But I mean, it's all about, it's all about, the boundaries. It's like not only in communication and speech, but also in emotional boundaries. It is physical boundaries. It's, sexual boundaries. It's all of it,
Well,
and
the Me Too movement is a huge example of the physical boundaries. I don't care how I'm totally naked, you're totally naked, but I have decided I do not want your penis in my vagina. I get to say no, and it ends right there. And somehow or another, men have decided that women are liars, and just because they're saying no, they really mean yes. Where did that come from? Who perpetuated that myth? I don't know. But I do see a lot of people using boundaries definitions wrong and using them as a way of abusing other people.
Right.
And that's what really bugs the hell out of me.
well, I
That
mean, I would call that
dynamic.
weaponizing boundaries.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
And
a great
we've touched on this on previous episodes that, I mean, I'm seeing that like right now in the LGBTQIA plus community, where it's like, well, we haven't been respected in so long. Now all of a sudden we're going to draw a boundary, and that boundary is, if you're not using the appropriate pronoun, I'm going to cut you down.
Oh, geez.
And it's like, I get it. You've been disrespected. Okay. I try my best to make sure that, I'm using the appropriate pronoun because that's your preference. That's what you want. Okay. And I get it. I get it. But like I said, if you are presenting female, and I accidentally slip up and say she, okay, I apologize. I'm sorry, that it shouldn't happen. And but don't sit there and say, okay, well, wait a second, you crossed my boundary and now you've disrespected me, and now I have to have a problem with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are doing the same thing that they're accusing you of because, and here, but it's very much more subtle. Many of us, myself especially, are very visual, very
Mhm.
visual, especially men. Men are always, almost always visual on a high plane. So if you're presenting as a female physically, and that's what I see visually, if I'm comfortable with you in a conversation, I can guarantee you, because of my age and being a visual processor, I'm going to say she somewhere in
Yeah.
that conversation. So I'm not going to say it's a compliment, but what it's telling you is that I am presenting to you myself based upon how comfortable I am with you, because I'm allowing myself to relax and be who I am, and I'm processing visually. And the reason I understand that huge dynamic is because I can't do that if I'm working as a private investigator. I have to be on high alert, and I have to be processing through auditory digital, which is totally analytical. And I cannot go into kinesthetic. I can do auditory, but I cannot do visual as my primary sources of communication style. So for you to get offended at me because I'm comfortable with you and I slip, that's just bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Totally
Well,
bizarre.
I don't think somebody can be told one time and expect to do it every time after that.
Right.
Well, especially if you're over 40. I'm sorry, age does, because, and it's not because we're old and decrepit, it's because we have patterns that are highly embedded in our subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
psychological thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you'll have
And
to
I
remind
try.
me.
I mean, inside of the groups that I circulate with, especially, I mean, I've been a part of organizations that are in the LGBTQIA, realm. Okay, I've even gone to the point of suggesting name tags with, what your pronouns are. So when you're looking at them, it's a reminder. I got to the point one time where, like, I could not keep it like in my head, that I was to be using this pronoun. So I started generically using they for everybody.
Yeah, I do that a
And
lot
then
too.
that, I mean, that to me is also kind of tiring because I'm having to shift, my perspective on how I speak, in order to make sure that I'm not offending. And I don't think that it's offensive to screw up, and be
So
like,
how
okay,
long do
I,
you
I
have to?
apologize. I'm sorry.
So how long though do you have to do that when you?
And when you're in a situation, and the organization I was with, I was there for almost a year and a half. Okay. And it went on every single time we were together,
Oh, jeez.
every
Well,
single time.
I had a
And
conversation.
I want you to say, I want to say this though. I didn't take offense to it, but I can say from like my perspective, I felt bad. I felt that I was doing something wrong, that I was failing them. Okay. And when it gets to that point, that's when I have to have like a serious conversation and go, wait a second, is this me? I mean, is there something wrong
Right.
with me? Or is the situation just not being appropriate? So,
Well,
you know,
yeah, and no one wants to feel like they're being beat up constantly
right.
because they're failing another person. You
Yeah.
don't want to be failing another person. I had that conversation recently with someone, and I'm like, look, here's the bottom line. I know that you are blank. I know that sometimes when I am talking quickly, my brain goes faster than my mouth, and I'm going to say blank. If you cannot afford me some grace, we don't have to talk anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, surely there's more to this relationship than whether or not I get blank right. And they had to make that decision. And again, I was not being controlling. I was not being a bitch. I was just saying, look, I'm doing the best I can do here.
Well, can you
And is
imagine?
there
I
any
mean,
value?
I have a cousin that um uh was born female and now he is male
Mhm.
and he's much happier. But I have known him all his life.
Right.
And what do? I call him Carolyn because that was his name. And I'm like, sorry, I've known you since you were this big and I just haven't adjusted.
And I've had that experience too. They call that the dead name. It's like you offended me because you called me by my dead name. Well, if I've known you for 40 plus years, you know, I have a friend, his name's Jay, and I didn't know him as Jay, when we were growing up. I mean, he was Karen. And so, there was one day that I was like, oh, Karen, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And she's like, you just called me by my dead name. And I was like, oh,
That's because when I met you, you had that name.
yeah.
And
And
Well,
that's
and
it's that
Karen's not
unconscious
dead
thing
to
that it snaps
you.
on.
The thing about it is that they don't consider is Karen's not dead to you. You didn't go to
Right.
a funeral. You didn't bury the body. You didn't grieve, or you may have grieved some, depending on how the dynamic of the relationship. But in you, Karen is still alive, and that's what they don't think about, And oh my gosh, I just look and go, do you think I did that on purpose? And do you think I'm
No.
trying to be mean? And if the answer
Well,
is no to those questions, give me a fucking break.
Well, Deborah, and I'm going to let you know that it's so important to the community. They are actually having funerals.
Wow, I
No,
didn't know
I'm
that.
serious. They're having funerals to put that to rest. So when people attend, it's like, I guess to help get a sense of like, nope, that's gone.
But that doesn't
I
always
think
mean
it's a
it
great
applies
idea
to
myself.
us.
That's me, but
Well, I think it's a good idea, but it doesn't mean that their friends and family are putting it to death either.
right.
Again,
well,
you can't take that boundary of that name and make me behave a certain way without taking in consideration my emotional stance in that situation. And again, it goes back to what this article said that I think is so important. It's the big picture. It's the big, if you think they're being rude, like if you walk into a bar and some redneck goes, well, look at that. Is that a woman or is that a man? Like in that song,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's an issue. You got to stand up. You got to plant your feet and get ready for a fight of some sort. But when you're with a loved one and you know that they're not intending to do anything to harm you, come on. Not every situation demands the same reaction. That's my point.
well,
Yes.
he has the same personality.
Mhm.
It's just that he's happier now being what he is.
Who he is, yeah.
Yeah. So when they have the same personality, they say the same things, and you're listening to them, then the other name comes out
Mhm.
because that's how you know them.
Well, and they were doing a personality thing that they always have done.
Mhm.
And when we were growing up, that was the response. Oh, you know. And so for me to change it to like, oh, Jay, it that wasn't it was so unconscious. I mean, so unconscious.
You just
I
have
just think that people look really hard for reasons to be offended. And if they put as much effort into looking on reasons on not to be offended, everyone would be much happier.
But there does seem to be a shift on what can I be offended about?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
how offended can I be today? I don't know if that's become a badge of honor or what. I mean, we even now have a word for women that act that way, Karens. You know,
Exactly.
That's true. I
it's
didn't think
it's
of that.
like
That's a good point.
Yeah.
how what's the guys want? Because there's guys out there that are acting the same way.
I think
You
it's
know,
Ken or Kevin.
is it
It's
Ken?
a K. Yeah, it's Ken or Kevin. I
So
can't remember.
we're in a generation now that we have so many Kens and Karens that go looking for things to be offended about. you know, and it's like, so where's their boundary? I think that they try to like take the boundary and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to be offended. Yeah, that boundary is right here at Starbucks. You didn't give me 3 pumps of, of caramel. You only gave me 2. So guess what? Starbucks is bad. And I'm gonna pick at them and I'm going to have a tantrum right here in the middle of Starbucks because you're disrespecting me as a woman because you didn't give me 3 pumps of caramel.
And see, I just don't have experiences like that. And it's really funny to me because I get two very weird dichotomies in my relationships. I have people that say I'm a bitch and I'm controlling, and then I have other people that think I'm just as sweet as I can be. But I always go into establishments with a smile on my face, and I always say please and thank you. And I don't ever have a reason to be offended, it seems. And I think, again, it's about your intent and the energy that you put out.
Mm-hmm.
Those Karens have really weird energy. You can watch the videos and go, wow, who pulled her plug?
Well,
Well, can I comment kind of like a little metaphysical thing that I've
yeah.
noticed? Okay. Karens, when they go looking for the problem. And when they
Yeah.
go looking for the problem, okay, I mean, if you're ordering a, iced grande, 5 pump, 153 degree, 2 sugar, small foam, half and half latte, are you expecting them to get that right every single time?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they come off as like, well, how hard is your job to just make me coffee? I was like, I've had experience that I've been, in line with people. And I'm like, well, why don't you get behind the counter and find out exactly how hard your drink is?
And you know what my thought is to hear that order? I'm like, who the fuck takes the time to figure out that kind of mixture to say, oh, that's the coffee I always want? That kind of my life is way too complicated to do coffee like that. Oh my God. What the hell? What the
But
hell?
people do it. But people do
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's the same way with McDonald's. You go through the McDonald's drive-through, you know the menu. There's not a lot of new things on the McDonald's menu, okay? But it's just like, okay, well, I need it with no onions and no pickles, okay? And I'll only want the bottom of the bun toasted, okay?
I really want
And
a
I want a
Whataburger. Can
full
you just go to
slice of cheese.
Whataburger?
I mean, it's not fucking Burger King, okay? Listen, you don't get it your way all the time.
Well, here's
Pardon
what
me, I'm sorry.
why can't, if it happens, why can't you just open that little sandwich and just take those off and
Thank you,
close
Lynn. Thank you.
Oh my
I
God, but
mean,
that would take effort and thought on my part, and I want other people to think for me. Have you noticed that?
Hmm?
People are expecting other people to be mind readers, but yet they don't think about what they're projecting. That's what I find fascinating. I'm supposed to read you, but you're not even seeing me, much less thinking about me. Am I preaching to the choir, or am I going to get an
No,
amen
I
or
totally
we
agree.
understand.
Yeah, we understand. I mean, but so do you think the problem with like Karens and Kens is that they like have very specific boundaries, or that they have no boundaries and they just make it up on the fly?
I think they're fucking assholes. That's what
I
I think,
think they
man.
just get offended by anything. And to
They,
me,
they are
I
so
don't,
out of control, and they feel like they have no control in their lives, and they are so alone emotionally, and so much on a pity party that they will do anything to get attention or to get someone to do something the way they want to do. I feel like these people are just desperate people, and those are the people I don't want to have guns.
No.
Okay. I mean, seriously. I mean, when the first time I encountered someone, when I was going through the quick checkout lane years ago in the grocery store, and she goes, you have 14 items and the limit is 12. I'm like, how the fuck are you standing there counting the items in my cart? Do you not have anything else to do in your life? Really? Really? Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating to me. They need to pay attention to the quality of their own life and get their noses out of other people's lives.
exactly.
No, of course, I
And,
probably would
and
have said something if you had like 42 items and going through the like 14 item, or 12 item
yeah,
aisle and everything else like that. And we'd be like, do you think this is the appropriate aisle for
where
you?
was that I saw? There was a sign that said 15-ish.
15-ish.
Ish.
I love
I
that.
love that.
Well, I just
15-ish.
pointed out to her, I said, well, three of these items are the same item, so we're just going to scan them all at the same time so they count as one. And I just kept going. I can rationalize anything. Trust me.
Well,
I can
I do the
rationalize
same
anything.
thing, but now there's so many self-checks, they don't even have anybody to check you out. So they don't, especially at Walmart.
All right. So, Doc M, why don't you give a closing thought to our boundaries? Because I've reached my saturation point, frankly. That's
Okay.
my boundary today.
That's your boundary for today. I think it's very healthy to have boundaries, but I also think that it's very healthy to examine your boundaries. That, we need to reevaluate, kind of the things that we're like, no way, no, we cannot do that. But then look at those and say, okay, but wait a second, can we really, hold that boundary up to other people's expectations? It's one of those things, it's a personal thing. It's a very, very personal thing, but I don't want to be a Karen. I don't want to be a Ken. I don't want to go out looking for reasons to like have to set weird boundaries. If you're disrespecting me, I'll say something, but on the other side of that, that's not the end all be all. You want to talk about donuts? Okay, I don't feel right now is the best time to talk about donuts. Can we have this conversation later?
I want to
And
do
just
that
not
now.
shut people down. So I think that, we have to have healthy boundaries, but I think that on the other hand, we need to make sure that we're examining those boundaries.
I think that's spot on. Luann, do you want to add a PS to that?
Don't be so damn nitpicky.
Yeah.
Let's flow through life a little bit easier, a little bit more relaxed. That doesn't mean people should run over you.
Right.
But still, I got everything I wanted except no phone. So be happy. It's just, it's
Frankly,
ridiculous.
if you're that picky, go home and make your own coffee because Starbucks sucks.
Right.
So that's my boundary. I won't drink Starbucks, but all right. So watch this. I'm fixing to spring something on them. Guess what we're doing next week?
Uh-oh.
We're going to do a combination of readings and prophetic ministry on the show. So bring your cards or whatever you want to do, runes or pendulums. I'll bring my Bible and my angel cards that I like to use. And we're just going to put out some general messages for the group. I just thought of that right now. I just came up with that right now. Isn't that brilliant?
Wow. Okay.
I like
So
it.
we're just going to kind of pick this is for the.
Yeah, and you might say,
public?
maybe I can see someone with long red hair that's in their 30s, and I just think this message is for you. It can be that specific, or you can just say, this is what I'm picking up that's going on with the energy right now. I do two things. I like to use my angel cards to help me focus quickly, and then I like to just check out my Bible. Just give you a real quick example. I did a prophetic message the other day, and I hate Revelations. Revelations is scary and it's weird but I pulled out the last verse of Revelations, and I find this fascinating. The last book of the Bible has a very wonderful, positive message, and I never knew that before. So I really felt like that message was more for me than it was for the person I was giving it to, because it gave me some insight and enlightenment that I didn't have. So that's what we're going to do. And maybe we'll have messages for each other. Who knows? So, Luann, tell people where to find you, dear.
herbal-lou.com or herballou1105@gmail.com.
Okay. Dr. M. Matthew.
Matthew at matthewapierce.com, or you can reach me at metaphysicalevents.com, www.metaphysicalevents.com.
And don't y'all have a class or something coming up soon?
We do. Actually, the class is tonight. The class that we're hosting, Kimberly Miller is a certified professional for infinite possibilities. Mike Dooley, she is trained by Mike Dooley and his crew. And we are talking tonight about thoughts become things.
All right, that's cool. And this weekend, Luanna and I are working gigs. She's doing tea leaf readings, and I am doing lip print readings for a bunch of men.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. So this is Miles of Smiles Events, Colleen Rose, and you can find me at isgu.com, milesofsmilesevents.com, or deborahcolleenrose.com. So we will see you all next week.
Bye
And
now.
watch those boundaries. Don't be a butt. Bye, y'all.